The autumn wind carried fallen leaves across the marble steps where Jack Morrison sat with his worn toolbox beside him. He'd been working at the courthouse for nearly 30 years, fixing what needed fixing, keeping things running smooth. Today he'd stayed late to repair a loose handrail, and now he was just taking a moment, watching the day fade into evening. That's when he noticed her. A little girl, maybe 3 or 4 years old, sat 2 steps below him. She wore a light blue dress that looked freshly pressed, and a pink knit hat with the pom-pom on top covered her blonde curls. In her small arms, she clutched a teddy bear almost as big as she was, holding it close like it was the most precious thing in the world. She was staring up at him with wide, curious eyes, not scared, just watching, waiting for something. Jack looked around. The afternoon crowd had thinned out, people heading home to their families. He could see a few folks lingering near the entrance, but nobody seemed to be looking for a lost child. "Hi there," Jack said softly, offering a gentle smile. "That's a nice bear you've got." The little girl nodded solemnly, then looked down at her teddy bear as if checking to make sure it was still nice. She hugged it a little tighter. "I'm Jack," he continued, keeping his voice calm and friendly. "I work here. I fix things when they break." She tilted her head, considering this information. Then, in a voice barely above a whisper, she said, "I'm Emma." "That's a beautiful name," Jack replied. He shifted slightly on the step, careful not to make any sudden movements. After raising 2 daughters of his own, he remembered how little ones could be skittish around strangers. "Are you waiting for someone, Emma?" She nodded again, her eyes drifting toward the courthouse entrance. "Mommy," she said simply. Jack followed her gaze. Through the glass doors, he could see the security desk and the hallways beyond. Someone inside, probably dealing with paperwork or court business, the kind of thing that always took longer than expected. "I bet she'll be out soon," Jack said. "Those things inside, they always take a while." "But your mommy knows you're out here waiting, right?" Emma's small shoulders lifted in the tiniest shrug. She didn't seem upset, just patient in that way children sometimes are when they're used to waiting. Jack glanced at the toolbox beside him. He'd been planning to head home, heat up whatever was left in the refrigerator, maybe watch some television before bed. His wife Margaret had passed 2 years ago, and the house stayed quiet most evenings. Their daughters visited when they could, but they had their own families now, their own busy lives. He looked back at Emma, sitting there so small and trusting on those big marble steps, and something in his chest tightened with the familiar ache. "Would it be okay if I waited here with you?" Jack asked. "Just to make sure you're not by yourself?" Emma considered this seriously, then nodded. She scooted up 1 step, closer to where he sat, and arranged her teddy bear more comfortably in her lap. They sat in comfortable silence for a few moments. The leaves continued their gentle dance across the steps, orange and gold and brown. The air had that crisp quality that meant winter wasn't far off. Jack had always loved this time of year. Margaret had too. "My bear's name is Coco," Emma announced suddenly, holding the stuffed animal up for Jack to see properly. "Coco," Jack repeated, nodding with appropriate seriousness. "That's a fine name for a bear." "Is Coco soft?" "Very soft," Emma confirmed. She pressed her face against the bear's fuzzy head as if to demonstrate. "Mommy got him for me when I was a baby." "Your mommy has good taste in bears," Jack said. He thought of the old stuffed rabbit his daughters had shared, how it had been patched and repatched until it was more stitches than original fabric. He wondered if it was still in a box somewhere in his garage. Emma leaned back against the step behind her, swinging her small legs. "Do you have a little girl?" "I have 2, Jack told her, and he felt that familiar warmth spread through him at the thought. "But they're not little anymore. They're all grown up now. One's a teacher, and one's a nurse." "That's nice," Emma said thoughtfully. "Teachers are important. My mommy says so." "Your mommy's right," Jack agreed. He found himself smiling, really smiling, in a way he hadn't in a while. The sun was sinking lower now, casting long shadows across the courthouse steps. Jack could see a woman through the glass doors, moving quickly, her face tight with stress. She was scanning the lobby, clearly looking for something or someone. Emma. The doors burst open and the woman rushed out, her eyes wild with worry until they landed on the little girl. "Oh, thank God, Ma, sweetheart," You scared me half to death." Emma stood up, clutching Coco to her chest. "Hi, Mommy, I waited outside like you said." The woman dropped to her knees on the steps, pulling Emma into a fierce hug. "I know, baby, I know. I finished faster than I thought, and when I came back to the waiting room, you weren't there, Aunt." Her voice cracked. Jack stood slowly, picking up his toolbox. "Ma'am, she's been right here the whole time. Safe as houses. I was just keeping her company." The woman looked up at him, and Jack could see the tears in her eyes, the relief and the fear all mixed together. She was young, probably in her 30s, with the same blonde hair as her daughter. There was a weariness in her face that spoke of difficult days and long nights. "Thank you," she breathed. "Thank you so much." "I thought, when they said I could bring her instead of finding a sitter, I thought she'd be okay in the waiting room for just a few minutes, but then everything took longer, Aunt." She wiped at her eyes with the back of her hand. "These things always do," Jack said gently. He understood now. A single mother, probably, dealing with legal matters or paperwork that couldn't wait. No family nearby to watch her little girl, making the best of a hard situation. Emma tugged on her mother's sleeve. "Mommy, this is Jack. He fixes things. And I told him about Coco." The woman managed a shaky smile, standing up and taking Emma's hand. "I'm Sarah. I can't tell you how grateful I am." Not everyone would. She trailed off, but Jack understood what she meant. Not everyone would sit with a lost-looking child. Not everyone would take the time. The world could be like that sometimes, people too busy or too afraid to stop and help. "It was my pleasure," Jack said, and he meant it. He reached into his pocket and pulled out one of his business cards, the ones the courthouse made him carry even though he rarely gave them out. "Listen, I work here most days. If you ever need to come back for any reason, and you need someone to keep an eye on Emma for a few minutes, you just let me know. I've got 2 daughters of my own. I know how hard it can be." Sarah took the card, her eyes filling with fresh tears. That's incredibly kind. "Thank you." Emma had been watching this exchange with serious eyes. Now she stepped forward and, very deliberately, held Coco up to Jack. "You can pet him if you want." Jack knelt down, careful of his old knees, and gently stroked the bear's fuzzy head. "Thank you, Ma. Coco is very lucky to have you." She beamed at him, then threw her small arms around his neck in a quick, impulsive hug. It lasted only a second before she pulled back, suddenly shy, but it was enough. Jack felt that squeeze in his chest again, that bittersweet ache of memory and loss and unexpected joy all tangled together. Sarah was openly crying now, but smiling through it. "Come on, sweetheart, let's go home." "Say goodbye to Jack." "Bye, Jack," Emma said, waving solemnly. "Goodbye, Ma." "Goodbye, Sarah." He watched them walk down the steps together, Sarah holding Emma's hand tightly, Emma chattering about something and swinging Coco in her other hand. At the bottom of the steps, Sarah turned back and mouthed "Thank you" one more time. Jack nodded. Then they were gone, disappearing around the corner into the autumn evening. Jack stood there for a long moment, toolbox in hand, watching the empty space where they'd been. The courthouse steps were quiet again, just him and the fallen leaves in the fading light. He thought about Margaret, how she'd always had time for people, how she'd believed in the simple acts of kindness that held the world together. He thought about his daughters, hoped he'd taught them the same. And he thought about Emma, waiting so patiently on those steps, trusting that someone would watch over her. The world could be hard, Jack knew that. He'd seen enough in his years. But it could also be good. Small moments of connection, brief encounters that reminded you why any of it mattered. He picked up his toolbox and started down the steps, heading for his truck in the parking lot. The house would still be quiet when he got there. The television would still flicker in an empty room. But tonight, somehow, it felt different. Tonight he'd remember a little girl with a pink hat and a teddy bear. He'd remember a grateful mother's tears. He'd remember that sometimes the most important thing you can do is just sit with someone on the steps and wait with them until help arrives. Sometimes that's enough. Sometimes that's everything. Jack climbed into his truck and headed home, the autumn leaves swirling in his wake, and in his heart, a warmth that hadn't been there that morning.